Man, there's actually a lot of adventure content to film today. Maybe I should just put a video with all that stuff in it in itself and put it on here later on. Maybe I'll put a little bit on here. How's that? Now, all right. What do we got? Who do we got? Hopefully, Sarah has the little 3-year-old under control and sleeping peacefully now. By now. All right, this is titled "Sounded Like a Pissed Off Elephant." Hey Steve, my name is blank, but I'd like to keep that to yourself. I'd like you to keep that to yourself, please. I'm going through enough at this point with cancer. That sucks. I'm kicking its ass, but would like to do it without any other hassle. I live in a town with about 3,500 others, and it makes it easy to spread gossip. This is going to be a long one, because I tend to ramble, but I do get my point across quite well. My experience happened in the summer of '93 on an island just about a mile off the coast of Maine. Me and my lifelong friend were trying to make a little money clamming. And I believe it was just about 3 in the afternoon. My wife had just left me and had been reaching out to God and praying a lot to possibly get her back. Why I'm telling you this will make sense as the story progresses. I hadn't been doing very well, finding many clams, and was getting frustrated as hell, and more impatient as the day went on. After a couple hours, I sat down in some shade, just about 20 feet from where the beach met the woods, and as I sat there, I was getting more pissed off by the second. I was finding hardly any clams. My prayers didn't seem to be getting answered. I was thinking to myself, piss on clamming, piss on this, piss on that. Where's the power in prayer? Power, what power? Well, I soon got my answer, and instantly regretted asking the question. Directly behind me, I heard what sounded like a couple 100-pound boulder falling from a sparsely branched spruce tree about 60 feet tall. I instantly sprung up from my position, lying on my back. I tucked and rolled to my feet, grabbing the first thing my hand could find, which was unfortunately a handful of grass. What was I going to do with that? Not a whole hell of a lot. I looked up into the tree and saw the limbs that were about 3 inches thick at the base swaying like crazy, like something had jumped off the top and hit every branch on the way down. What a racket. My friend and I, who had heard the racket too, went up into the trees to investigate what the hell had just happened. Somehow, new limbs were broken, and under the tree at the base were 2 or 3 indents into the ground in a hoof-like shape. They were about 4 inches deep and were bigger than my fist. We couldn't figure out what happened, so just continued clamming. A couple hours later is where things got really interesting. It was just about dark, and the tide hadn't reached the small boat we had grounded out on the beach. In fact, it was stuck between 2 rocks, so we couldn't push it into the water. We had to sit and wait until the tide came and floated it itself. You can hear the rain pouring down now. You can hear that background sound. We had to sit and wait till the tide came and flooded itself. While we were sitting there, all of a sudden a loud, howling scream came from the bushes just to the left of the tree we had investigated earlier. And then a crashing I could only compare it to a pissed off elephant taking his anger out on a bunch of alders. It stopped, then repeated the same thing several times. I've never heard anything like it. Like something was getting torn apart, but pissed off at the same time. That's the only way I can describe it. A loud howling and screaming that put the fear of God in you. We just looked at each other in fear and disbelief, grabbed the detachable seats from the boat and makeshift weapons, and 4 makeshift weapons, and waited for what we heard to just come running from the woods and rip us to shreds. After what seemed like an eternity, we could finally hear bubbles under the boat, where water finally started to float it. We got out and gave the boat what help it needed to get into the water and started the engine as we scanned the shore where the sound had been coming from, just waiting for it to show itself, which it never did. Needless to say, we weren't disappointed. I know this is an abrupt end to the story, but I've taken up enough of your time. Thanks for sharing my story, Steve, and be careful out there, and God bless. God bless you too. I hope your luck turned around, man. And kick that cancer's ass. Alright, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be praying for you, I'll guarantee it. That's just what everybody does here, to be honest. There you go. When you said that, beating out of the trees, the first thing that came to my mind was a story of an old friend of mine. He was texting me while I was on here, I believe. And his First Nations guides were texting him from the Gold River, Vancouver Island area because they're out shining lights on a herd of elk, and their spotlights hit what was described as a 10-foot tall hairy Sasquatch blowing a gasket, screaming at them and beating the shit out of the mature alder trees in front of them. Reminded me of that one. Here's another one. Mark, this is red. This is titled, "They Chose to Ignore the Bellows." Greetings, Steve. First, let me say thank you for providing a safe and accepting forum for a truthful discussion of these forest people. It means more than you may realize. I have 3 occurrences. Finally, question. First, I'm now 68 years old and spent much of my youth in the forests of New England, hunting, fishing, and enjoying life in the forest. When I was about 14 years old, I spent many weekends in a remote area of Vermont, hunting with my uncle and his friends, all experienced outdoorsmen. We stayed in a log cabin built on the side of a mountain overlooking a valley with a range of mountains on the opposite side. Not as grand as your home, but beautiful just the same. Thank you. Often in the early evening and into the night, I would hear what sounded like a cross between the roar of a big cat and a deep bellow. It would originate on our side of the mountain, cross the valley, then seem to receive a response from the opposite mountainside. When asked about this, the other hunters dismissed this as not being the roar of a big cat, as there was no such animal in this area. But they had no explanation and chose to ignore these bellows with a quick change of subject. These sounds seemed far off, so there was no need for concern, just wonderment. Second, 3 years ago, I was returning home from a work assignment. I left early in the morning, around 4 a.m., facing a 7-hour drive. The long drive took me through a very thickly forested wildlife management area in eastern Pennsylvania. The route was pitch black, with no moon, and cloudy skies. After several hours on the road with no civilization nearby, and needing to relieve myself, I stopped the car in the middle of the road to take care of business. I was peering over the top of the car at a deep culvert, leading to a very steep 8 or 10-foot man-made berm leading to the forest floor. And suddenly, a large creature rose from the culvert about 30 feet from me. Outstretched, it was the height of the berm. With 2 steps, it scaled the slope and disappeared into the forest. My head told me it was a bear, but my heart told me it was something else, something I couldn't explain. Third, my fiancée and I love the state of Maine, both the shore and the mountains and forests. We had made the decision to relocate and spent several weekends traveling the length and breadth of the state looking for the perfect home off the beaten track. Maine is well known for wildlife and big game, with an abundance of moose, deer, elk, etc. With all of these travels around the state, over 2,000 miles driven, we never saw any animals. Not a bird, not a squirrel, no sounds or crickets or frogs, nothing. It became a running joke that the hype was just an attempt to draw tourists and hunters. In hindsight, I now wonder if we were being stalked/shadowed, explaining the lack of forest sounds. And finally, in 2020 was a tragic year for forestation in the western U.S. Over 400,000 acres have burned, leaving wastelands in its wake. The forest people clearly are far better survivors than we'll ever be. So my question is, in the aftermath, where did the forest people go? Did they flee to far-flung areas of the country? It might be interesting to study increased sightings in areas adjacent to those devastated, or perhaps occurrences in areas where there had been none previously. I'm grateful for what you do. feel free to use my name. Alright, I would, but it's not in here. I appreciate you sending that in. It's funny, or is it funny? It's just odd. Not odd, it's just a thing. It's like the amount of people who have been on a road trip and decided to pull over right there for a pee. And it was just the random 1 in a kabillion chance they pull over and stop right where one of these unknown human-like beings was at the same time. Like, what are the chances, right? Imagine how many people out there have done this, and it's been a lot, right? Now, I'll guarantee you every single one of them, of the people who had the same experience, pulling over to pee randomly, and had an experience. And forever they're probably saying to themselves, how could it happen to me? Seriously? Right, that's what I'd be doing. For sure. I'd be like, only me. Of course, I decided to pull over and pee where there's a frickin' 10-foot tall, hairy dude squatting in the bushes right there. Only me. You know what I mean? Notepad, Tom's Mountain. The stars must have aligned is the title of this one. Tom's Mountain, in brackets. The stars must have aligned that night because the fishing trip was going to be life-changing. We just didn't know it yet. My dad, my 2 uncles, Rocky, Lily, and Mike Lilly, former Army Ranger, were heading to Tom's Mountain on an old buddy of my uncle, Mike's. Had a big piece of land out by the Miami Whitewater Forest. No punctuation, so buckle in. It sat right beside it. That setup of having that park and all the forest was key, I believe, in what happened later that night. We got to Tom's and made the climb. It was a hell of a climb just to get up there, just to fish. It was damn well near a 90-degree climb up, and it was a warm September day. We got to the top, nearly wore out. You always threw your gear down and bent over to suck air after that climb, hands on knees. But it was always worth it. The fishing was killer. Always it started as a 90-degree climb, but then flattened out a half mile up, and Lake 1 was perfectly flat. But on the north side was another climb up a 60-degree angle up to Lake 2. Another 1 to 150 yards up, but no one ever had the energy to go any further. Why? The fishing was killer, as I said. There was a ridge that started from the climb up to Lake 2 that ran all the way back towards Tom's. But wrapped around towards Lake 2, we're talking about 6,000 acres. Miami Whitewater Forest sat right next to it, so we're talking massive forest, mass waterways, lakes, ponds, and plenty of game, deer, rabbits, squirrels, etc. We started fishing. The cows were over on the left side of the lake. The forest sat 3 feet from the lake. One hard to fish. The left side, we'd always get our lines hung up in the trees, so no one ever hardly fished that side unless using artificial baits and casting sideways. The fish were biting like crazy that day. Everyone catching them. The day went fast, as always up there. It was a beautiful place. Well, night came and the fishing slowed down. Out of nowhere. So we all set up for the night. Fishing part. We'd never done it before. Okay, there's a few typos and there's no punctuation, but I'll make it work. We all set up for the night, fishing apart. We'd never done it before. There, anyways, slip bobbers on and the minnow buckets full of bait. We switched over for crappie fishing. Well, we were catching one here, one there, and about 12 midnight, the cows got up and left out of nowhere, up to Lake 2. We thought nothing of it. Kept fishing. About an hour later, up on the ridge, we heard something coming our way, moving slow, snapping and cracking, moving evasively, almost methodical. We thought deer, and kept on fishing, even though I had a weird feeling come over me like, What if it's something else? I quickly shrugged that off and fished on. Well, everything shut down about 45 minutes later to a halt. And I hated when that happened, so I thought, well, I will go over and fish the left side. I knew where a 5-foot hole was, where I'd always catch a couple more if all else failed. I always did so, undecided to make my move over, and grabbed my pole and a minnow bucket and the lantern, and I could it out at the turn. And we'd all have light to see. What? Oh boy. The lantern, I put it out, down, oh my god, at the turn, and we'd all have light to see what we were doing. We had nightsticks on our bobbers anyway, so I made the move. Well, as I got to the turn, to hit the left side, I put the lantern on where I'd be fishing, went out of nowhere. I hit light on a creature that was crouched down on 2 legs, not 4 or 3, but 2. It had an arm in the water and was scooping water when it realized it had a bright light on it. It slowly pulled its hand up out of the water, and I seen the water dripping from its hand. It slowly turned its head over its left shoulder to glance at me. It started to let out a low, curdling growl. Mouth opening slowly, its eyes a wicked yellow color. Its fur was layered, 3/4 inches, and kind of thick, on a beautiful cinnamon color. 4 canine teeth I'd seen, as well as a mouthful of other teeth, all muscle. This thing crouched, was 4 foot. So I figured later, probably 7 or 7.5 feet tall, about 450, 500 pounds. It was broad-shouldered, but not huge like others I'd heard described, but still very impressive to say the least. I was frozen stiff with fear. I was frozen stiff with fear. It slowly turned to its right to give a look at the woods and let out a breath of air at the end of its growl, as if it were disgusted. It had been seen. It had come down off that ridge. It didn't have a clue we were there. We were always quiet up there, hardly talked while fishing. This creature had no clue we came up to night fish, and that's what was not normal for any of us. And that's what was not normal for any of us to be up there at night. So we must have disrupted its schedule by being there clearly at this time of night. I slowly came to my senses after clearing my mind of what I'd just seen. Fear was present now for all of us involved. This creature was kind of giving me a half look, as it was looking also towards the woods in front of it. They were only 3 feet away. That's how it came down. I knew at this moment That's how it came down. I knew at this moment and couldn't smell us. We were downwind the whole time. As it was creeping down, I heard my dad say, "Junior, what is that? Do you see that?" Oh, sorry, you guys. You're going to go through it with me, all right? It was creeping down. I heard my dad say, "Junior, what is that? Do you see that?" My uncle's saying the same thing as well. I finally broke free from the fear when I yelled down the mountain, "Now!" And I bolted towards the edge. I look over, the creature's still staring half at us, half towards the woods. I look to the edge. I see my family jump over. I was right behind them as they hit the ground at the downslope, running. I hit shortly after, running past them. I lifted the light, only to slow me down and whack. They all crashed into the back of me, and we all fell end over end down the hill, lantern still in hand. I was already tired, drained, feeling hopeless, yet pumped from what I'd just seen. I look back, nothing behind us. I'm still thinking any second now it's going to grab one of us. I was remembering stories from my youth and my earlier encounter as a kid coming home from school one day. We struggled to get to our feet. It seemed like hours getting to the bottom. Finally, we did make it to the car. Everyone, hands on knees, sucking wind to breath, asking each other what the hell was that we just seen. The others saying, you know damn well what we just seen. Junior, put the light on that thing. What? Sorry. Oh my gosh. Breath, asking each other what the hell that we just seen. The others saying, you know damn well what we just seen. Junior put the light right on that thing. We all knew what it was, but agreed not to say a word. We didn't want people coming out here stalking this thing on Tom's land. It was his land, not ours. Needless to say, all the gear was left behind except the lantern. My uncle Mike went back later and got our gear, armed of course. I didn't go, neither did my dad or my uncle. My Uncle Rocky. They wasn't having any part of that. What a night. I decided to let it out because my fiance was just diagnosed with lymphoma. And we have nothing to lose at this point but each other. If you read this, Steve, it's true. I've had 3 total from the ages of 8 to 25. Wild to say the least. These things exist. And I'm pushing for the truth as well with other organizations as well. Thank you, Steve. Happy hunting, brother. Alright, man. I'm sorry to hear about your partner. That's sad and that sucks ass. And don't sweat the typos. No big deal. Nobody's perfect, alright? Nobody's perfect. We got through it. We got it. Totally understand what happened and the description. And welcome to the club. And I realize I have this is in 2021, April 11th. No, sorry. Sorry. When was this? This was sent. Doesn't say. Alright. Anyway, moving along, you guys. This is a while back that I received this email, and I hope your partner pulled through. Alright. Crazy. It's been about the easiest bow kill of my entire existence. What's this one? Mike, this is red. This is titled, Threw Something at Us and Screams. Hey Steve, I've been following you and your channel for quite some time now. I've watched every Sasquatch video you've made and have watched countless other hunting videos of yours. I'm from Maine, and I grew up in a hunting family. My father is a master Maine guide, and my grandfather is a professional Maine guide. Read it! It's not that long, I'll read it again. There's thousands of new people here. I've been in the woods ever since I can remember, following my father around, learning as much as I can. I've hunted and successfully harvested all of the large game animals in the state, as well as numerous species of small game. So I know what is what when I'm in the woods. I know enough to know how animals act towards humans. In the fall 2014, I was in my family's cabin on a pond about 20 miles outside the town we live in. It's pretty remote. Being the road into the cabin is gated off and it's a mile drive in. There are 4 cabins on this pond that are all owned by my family. These cabins have been in my family since the 1920s. My great-grandfather ran a hunting and fishing outfit out of these cabins. My mother, father, wife, and I were at the cabin relaxing and just enjoying the peace and quiet. Me being me and kind of intrigued about the whole Bigfoot subject, I decided to joke around and take 2 pieces of firewood and make 2 knocking sounds with them around 8:30. By maybe 9 p.m., my father was already sleeping, so it was just my mom, my wife, and me awake. My wife and my mom had to go outside to use the outhouse, but once they stepped outside of the cabin, onto the porch, they instantly heard 2 knocks in the woods. Needless to say, they didn't walk all the way out to the outhouse, and just decided to pee right beside the porch. No doubt, I would have done the same. They came into the cabin and told me what they had heard. I didn't believe them, so I went out and just stood on the porch. My mom joined me and we heard walking right directly in the woods not 20 yards from us. I had a very bright spotlight and shined it in the woods and nothing. I turned the light off and instantly heard the walking again. Then we heard deep breathing. Something with lung capacity unlike any human. We rushed inside and told my wife what just happened. And none of us really knew what was out there, but we had an idea. We were not inside long, then bam! Excuse me, something hit the side of the cabin. The cabin is set maybe 8 feet from the wood line. I had enough, grabbed a shotgun loaded with slugs, and went and stood on the porch. I was greeted with a high-pitched but deep scream 20 yards in the wood line, and it was unlike anything I've ever heard. It did that 4 times, then went back to making the breathing noises. I went inside, my mom shut the curtains, and we sat around the table. For a few hours, nothing else happened to the cabin that night. I still feel very uneasy going in there, and my wife won't stay in there overnight unless we stay in the cabin. We've told a few people in the family, and none of them believe us as to what happened. Thanks for listening. Keep on telling great stories. You can use my name if you want. Caleb Wade. Caleb, thanks for being a brave, honest, and free man. Free man, meaning you're not scared. Alright? I love that. I understand people that will not leave their name. I'm not belittling you. I'm just saying, when I come across somebody bravely leaves their name and town and location, right on, brother. We walk the same path. You know, you got some more family members out there who might be laughing at you guys. Don't sweat it, but maybe, possibly, send them this video. Alright? Send them this video. Let them know that there are how many? How many people know what's going on? Right? Here we go. Who's this? What's this? Dear Steve. First of all, I want to say thank you for all the content you upload with your busy schedule. You've given a lot more peace of mind. I wish to hide my identity, so you may refer to me as Jay. Feel free to share my story if you'd like. I'll start off by giving you a little background about myself. I'm 24 years old. I'm from a very rural county in southwest Virginia. Probably more cows here than people. I'm a very active person. I'm an avid bow and gun hunter and fisherman, and have been for the majority of my life. I'm very active with lots of hiking and running when I'm home. I know I'm very young, but I have nerves of steel. I drive a tractor and a trailer and pull a low boy. I moved any kind of heavy equipment you can imagine. Everything from excavators to bulldozers to cranes, drills, off-road hauler, etc. After I started driving a truck through rain, sleet, hail, and snow, nothing really seemed to get my blood pressure up anymore. Now, time to get to my experience. Me and a lifelong friend went in together and leased 100 acres to hunt this year, close to where we lived my whole life. I ran through the woods my whole life without a care in the world, until about a month ago. It all began about a month ago. I rode my four-wheeler a couple hundred yards into the woods, so I had probably a 20-minute walk to my deer stand, which I had hunted at this stand several times this year already without incident. As soon as I got within 100-ish yards, I got the most terrified feeling I've ever gotten in my whole life. It was all I could do to breathe, let alone keep walking. It was all I could do to breathe, let alone keep walking off. Pull my .40 cal pistol from its holster. I was frozen with my light in my hand. My heart was beating out of my chest. I was sick to my stomach. I could hear something keep walking around me. I know what a deer, bear, turkey, and squirrel sound like, and it was not one of these. I stood there for what seemed like an eternity, but probably wasn't 30 seconds, and I quickly walked to my stand, and I didn't run, but I didn't waste any time. Once I finally made it to my stand, I never felt safe until the sun come up. But once I could start seeing through the thick timber, I just had the biggest calm I ever felt in my life come over me. I don't know if they were testing me to see my reaction, or if the calming feeling was because my sixth sense was telling me that they decided I wasn't worth fooling with, or what. I never did see anything. I just had my sixth sense bell ringing like you would not believe. It's good to hear. I love hearing that people have got it, especially when they listen to it. Ever since this incident, I've been hearing very alarming sounds, like monsters, rocks being thrown through the tree limbs. Or did you mean like monster rocks being thrown through the tree limbs? Not really being thrown at me, just in my general direction. Big tree limbs being snapped very loudly, but no screams or growls. Not that I'm complaining about not hearing them, I don't want to hear them. I don't want another encounter. I don't ever want that feeling again in my life. I would not wish that upon my worst enemy to feel as helpless as I did. Do you have any idea what they wanted with me? Why did I have the big calming feeling? Could you throw your 2 cents in on the whole situation, please? I'm begging for some enlightenment. I've not completely given up hunting in the area, but I'm very wary about where I go and when I go. Thank you for everything you have done and all the stories and advice you have shared. Keep doing you, and don't let anyone ever take that away. Feel free to email me back, sincerely, Jay. Okay, Jay, I don't have your email in this. I can't even tell how long ago you wrote this in on my notes, unfortunately. All I just had was the email in here and not marked as read, so I found you. Got you. I got to you finally. I hope you're still here with us. And just so you know, I'm no expert in anything. I'm just not. When it comes to this topic, I'm no expert. I'm just like everybody else. We're here to hear each other out, compare notes, see the patterns, learn from each other, and push aside all the bullshit. Right? That's what we're doing here. What can I give advice to? Am I even in a position I can give advice? I don't know. I'll tell you how I govern myself. That'll help, maybe, possibly. Because we're passionate about the same things, right? So, if you are still here with us right now following this channel, you might take note that this last few weeks I was hunting in northern British Columbia, fairly remote, and mostly by myself. And I had what could be called terrifying or maybe alarming as F experience when I was going to bed one night in my tent, and I just got up and left. And just so you know, I don't know I can't recall how many acres you have, but it sounds like a lot. And you know what? I was hunting probably within 3 miles of where I heard those crazy ass powerful sounds. For days after the fact, after the night happened, I just didn't go back there. I had to hang out in that timber. I gave it a bit of a wide berth, left it alone. I didn't run home and tuck my tail and run and go home. I didn't quit. I stayed. I just went somewhere else. And that works for me. That's worked for me a lot, obviously. I don't quit. I still hunt. I still do it by myself. I still go remote, 2-day drive in northern BC away from home just to get there. So try that. And I suggest using baby steps, what I call them. Just use baby steps, go into your hunting spot where you have that experience. If it's a hot spot, the game's still going there, you got some big scrapes showing up and shit, you got stuff in your cameras or whatever, you go again. You'll know. You will know if it's off. Before you even sit down, you'll know. And I call that pressure. If you feel the pressure, leave. Go somewhere else. Go make stands somewhere else. Go make food plots or bait piles or salt licks, whatever you're doing, go make stands somewhere else. And you know what? Those big bucks are moving up to 7-8 miles routinely anyway. Right? You can find somewhere else where those big bucks are going to show up, the same ones. So, Also, verbally say out loud. If you go to that spot, you feel the pressure, just say out loud, just leave me alone. I know you're here. You know I'm here. Just leave me alone. I'm just here to hunt. I don't give a shit about you. I don't want a picture of you. I don't want video of you. I don't want nothing to do with you. Just leave me alone. That's what I do. I'm still here with you guys right now. Excuse me. And I still go in remote British Columbia alone all the time. Alright, so try that. Or not. Just don't give up, but try that. That's all I've got. That's all I've got is to share what's worked for me. Right? I don't share what I think might work. I heard this might work. I don't know. All I can do is share with everybody what I know for me. And it's my puzzle. I'm sharing a piece with you. Take from it what you will or leave it, right? Yeah. Let's get somebody else here. I don't even know how long I've been out here. I should probably cut this short in a bit. She's going to think that I'm not wanting to go back in the house. All right. What do we got? Who do we got? This is titled Chatham, Alaska. Chatham. Hey, Steve. I read that you were looking for information pertaining to Port Chatham, Alaska. I do have some information. It's a long story, but I'll keep it short and just get to the facts. I'm friends with Rob Alley, author of Raincoast Sasquatch. I think he might have sent me his book in the past. In 2013, Rob put me in touch with an Alutiiq native from Nanwalek. So Alutiiq is Alutiiq. Nanwalek is just around the bend from Port Chatham. In June of 2014, I drove down to Homer, Alaska from Anchorage and met with my contact. We motored across the bay past Seldovia to Nanwalek. I spent 3 days in the village. We did some bear hunting in the forest around the area. Many people, especially adults, speak openly about the Nantinaq. N-A-N-T-I-N-A-A-Q. Bigfoot. As long as they know you are not there to ridicule them. I heard many stories ranging from up-close sightings, distance sightings, baby cries, wood knocks, whoops, spirits, etc. Two strange things occurred while I was there. First, we drove a dirt road from the village to a place in the forest that was described to me as windburst. It was a group of trees that were flattened in a circular fashion, a radius of several hundred feet. These were large spruce trees that looked as if they'd been flattened by a UFO. I'd also heard some stories about those while I was there. The trees were all knocked down, with the tops facing away from each other. That's crazy. Are we talking mature, as in big first growth? It's kind of hard to picture this. I'm picturing it, but it's kind of hard to go, yeah, it's just a windburst. What? I've never seen anything like that in my life. I'd like to. The second story happened when we were on an old dirt road hiking back to the village after bear hunting. My native companion started playing an APP on his phone of a baby crying. He asked me, "Do you know what I'm doing?" I replied, "Yes, I know what you're doing." About 5 minutes later, we heard a large commotion in the woods to our left. We could see clearly for about 100 yards into the forest. We had 3 high-powered rifles with scopes trained on a large birch tree laying at about a 30-degree angle. It was violently being shaken back and forth and up and down. This went on for about a minute. We were looking for a bear. We could see the tree very clearly, even without the scopes. There just wasn't anything visible. There just wasn't any visible thing shaking that tree. It was bizarre. When I returned to Anchorage, my native friend texted me and asked me what I thought happened. I told him that perhaps it was some kind of an entity triggered by the baby crying APP he played. I haven't heard from him since. He stopped replying to my texts after that. I think he was kind of shaken up by the experience. Anyway, I know I'm vague on details, but even with the skeleton of the story, it still makes for a long email. I can give you more details if you're interested. Bigfoot stories are all over the state, especially in southeast Alaska and to the southern part of central Alaska. That's all temperate rainforest. Please don't use my name if you share this story. I'm a teacher and have to protect my job. P.S. I also think Joe Rogan needs to shut up about the things he doesn't understand. He's no outdoorsman. Yeah. All right, Port Chatham. Did you put your name in here? I don't think you did. I like it if anybody doesn't, if there's people here that are on the fence about emailing in, and you finally do, and you don't want your name mentioned, don't put your name in it, or tell me in the beginning of the email. All right, a few times I think people have wrote the email, had their name on it, and then at the very end of the email, don't use my name. And then I try to remember to go back and edit that out, and then I end up reading the next story, and then you lose it, and then you mention their name, and it kind of sucks. So, there you go. Now, the guy in APP, everybody knows that I'm not the most tech-savvy person. APP, don't know what that is. And for the life of me, why would a man be playing a baby? I'm thinking, did you mean a human baby sound? Because I remember years ago, I was emailing back and forth with the late great Bobby Short, and when I was looking into pursuing these beings intentionally, and of course, and even when I had breakfast with Dr. John Bendernagel, it's around the same time too. I was telling him my plans of how I was going to go up the coast in one of those inlets and lure one of these beings in. I remember Bobby Short telling me back then that the sound of a human baby crying was very effective. And Dr. John, he was a very polite, kind man. And I don't think he wanted to say anything at all to discourage me of what I was planning on doing. You know, I was young and dumb and full of piss and vinegar, and I was just going to go out there because I'm a professional hunting guide and I'm going to make this happen. Right? Not quite understanding at that time exactly what these beings really are. So, yeah, my curiosity is, what the hell's he doing playing if it was a human being baby sound he was playing out loud, why was he doing it? Especially if he got the reaction he got and then he just want to talk to you ever again, or he figured he was upset because of the outcome. Well, I'm pretty sure anybody at this stage of the game in the outdoors, if they know about playing a recording of a human baby, they know what that's going to trigger, and it's not going to be a bear. Right? But anyway, there you go. I think I've kind of lost time here. I don't know how long I've been here, but I got a funny feeling I should probably get back to the house and give Sarah a hand. And I'll add in some more of my adventure clips from today. I think they're kind of cool. Had a bear coming up to my inflatable, little bastard. I had to scare him away because I didn't need him chewing on my boat. I'd already drifted about an hour, I think, or something, downriver. And then I dragged the boat upriver to get to where I was. And then I was up around the bar, and I looked back, and here comes a bear walking straight towards my inflatable, beached on the gravel bar. But anyways, I got a lot of video today. Real cool video. I also had a great big bear come walking right. I was anchored. I had a boulder tied onto the rope so I could anchor in the run of the river and fish. And I was about 10 paces off the left side of the river. And I'm fishing away, and I looked to my left, and here's this great big boar bear surging through the water right beside me. Excuse me. But not the one I want to harvest. And that would have been one of the easiest bear harvests ever today. So there you go. Back in action. I'm using Adobe now, and I'm learning as I go. I think I got it for the editing. So, share my story at howtohunt.com. Alright? And for all those who, by babble, or opening videos, or adventure clips might make you angry, there's always the fast forward button. There really is. And, yeah. What else? That's about it. That's about it. I'll be back tomorrow with a lot more to be shared. I'm starting to get caught up, and I really got to start thinking about traveling to the United States or both United States and United Kingdom. Back shortly.
Uh-oh.